Number 9, Note from the Blue. Today is Sunday, April the 21st. The sun is in the constellation Aries today. This is the serpent moon in the serpent year. A very important time for resolute decision, resolute choice, resolute decision, resolute action. It's important to center, first and foremost, and above all, center now. Learn to be in your center, and then let all action move from your center to completion and return to your center. For the rest of this year, work with the universal archetypal principle of integrity. What is integrity? Integrity is wholeness. When you're centered, when we are centered, when we are whole, when we're dynamically balanced, when we are consciously androgynous, meaning our whole field of energy, all of the energy and all the parts and particles of all matter and all space that are available to us in every moment, we learn to center all of this energy in our individual center. And we learn how to be from this center. And let all action, all doing rise naturally and spontaneously from this state of being. First, learn to be. Then do only what the moment calls for. Only what this living, now, here, moment needs, demands. Must we act? We must respond to this moment. This is responsibility, the ability to respond to this now, here moment. When we learn this, we become completely responsible. So we pick up that cigarette butt instead of dropping it. We pick it up now. As soon as it drops, we pick it up. Or we pick up that extra Fritos wrapper bag or whatever. Consciousness is very simple, honest. It can be experienced and co-created with effortless simplicity because we're doing it with effortless simplicity always. It's simply that most of us, most of the time, are unconscious while we are supposed to be conscious in our lives. And we're unconscious because we're primarily living on reflections of the past, memories rising up in the unconscious and through the subconscious levels, giving us images and flashes of experiences through present smells we may smell that flashes back into the past and bring it forth into the now. We start to relive that. So our attention leaves the living now and goes into this past, into this memory of this past experience, which is never the experience. It's just a dead reflection of it.
Like being asleep.
It's exactly being asleep, because it means I consciously choose to go unconscious into the dead past. That means I'm giving my energy to death, so I'm serving necrophilia in that moment. I'm serving the love of death. And that's a choice that I'm unconsciously making, because almost all necrophilic acts are unconscious. It's a struggle to return to what we were at conception and birth, fully conscious. Pre-conscious, meaning pre-mind, ego, personality conscious. Pre-self-conscious. Pre-conscious of this separate, individual, split apart, isolated I am being that when you really detach from it and look at it, isn't even real. It's the ultimate illusion, is I am. However, we have to work through many dimensions and levels and layers of past experience that overlay us and coat us like dust on a mirror, so to speak. We have to remove all that to finally get to the clarity of the reflection of the mirror underneath, so we can see more clearly what is reflected from our past and our memory. This is the value of the past, the lessons that we learned, the understanding that we directly experience through these lessons, and the wisdom that we glean from that and carry with us to apply if a similar experience happens in the future. Understanding and wisdom are important spiritual, psychological, metaphysical twins. They go hand in hand. They're born simultaneously. And they come through direct experience, not through knowledge. I can only experience understanding by directly experiencing life itself in its wholeness, or as fully as I'm capable at any moment. Through this direct experience of any event, I have a closer understanding of it than any knowledge could ever give me, because the knowledge is simply an abstraction of that experience into symbols and images and words and languages and other material forms that symbolize and are similes for the experience of the truth. But the expression of the truth is not the truth. No matter how poetic, no matter how clear, no matter how powerful, no matter how transformational my expression of any event is, my expression is not the event. At best, my expression is a clear, more holistic interpretation of my experience of the truth. But the expression of it could not possibly be the truth. So let's not get hung up in the words, in the images, in the forms, in the matter of the situation. Let's detach from all that and return to the center of our being, where we have a more holistic experience and overview of life itself, our relationship with the universe, literally. If we want to sit and be quiet and empty and expand our consciousness in dynamic receptivity and emptiness as far as we can expand it in those modes of dynamic receptivity, until we expand it as far as we can go and then receive all that we've surrounded with our dynamic receptivity, like a empty chalice being filled with pure experience and then overflowing constantly with universal experience. This is who we are, consciously or unconsciously, so I choose to experience it consciously rather than have it happening to me unconsciously and miss the joy of it. Because it's this experience that makes me want to spontaneously sing and dance and make a joyous noise unto the Lord, which sometimes disturbs the neighbors who are frightened by such liberating behavior. My feeling is that we are conceived and born as human beings, ultimately, to learn to be free. And I'm not just saying a word here, or a concept, or a belief, or a theory, or a wish, or a dream, or a vision. When I say free, or freedom, I'm referring to the direct experience of being free, of living abundantly, sharing that abundance with everyone who's interested in sharing with you, without money, charge, cost, or payment. Simply, if it costs 1 penny, it's not free. This is the way I choose to live in freedom. Because for me, this is freedom. Anything else is some form of deception, some lie about freedom, trying to get into my resources, trying to get money from me.
When there's no thing left to lose, it's close to freedom.
Michael's quoting from Bobby McGee, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Freedom ain't worth nothing, but it's free.
And that implies the emotional, the mental, the physical, all dimensional realms.
Everything that a human being is and possibly could ever be, if freedom is real and true, then I must experience being free on all those levels and every one of those dimensions. The emotional, the physical, the psychological, mental, and the spiritual. In every part of my body that I know is available to me, like, for example, there may be approximately 100 trillion cells in my whole body. When each and every one of those cells experiences being free, then I'm free. My experience, however, is that since humankind is one organic body and organism, and that every individual human being is one of approximately 7 billion cells in that body politic of humankind, then to me, and I later learned that Buddha said a similar thing, until everyone is free, nobody is. So we have a lot of work to do here if we're going to learn to be free, because that means 7 billion human beings on this earth must learn to be free. Because until I learn it, I don't earn it. I must learn it. I must struggle and go through the whole learning process that every being has to go through to learn something. That's the value of it. The energy invested in earning it for yourself so that it's in your body, so that every cell of your body experiences it.
Well, this is kind of the easy part. If you start talking about how the collective unconsciousness of all generations, that all lives that have been living on this planet are stored in memory in our DNA, and how much there is to understand and transform from that, we can see that we are on a huge task to become free.
It's huge, Michael. On so many levels, it's difficult to even discuss it. First of all, it's hard to talk about freedom in the first place. It's a huge task because, first of all, if it's going to be real and true, I must free myself. I must experience being free.
What about all that storage in your DNA that the whole humanity's storage, most likely?
That's the perspiration, that's the work, that's the struggle, that's the resistance, that's the pain, that's the grief, that's the sense of loss and suffering, having to cut those bonds, those genetic bonds that keep you bound to.
That's what I can do as an individual, so like I can kind of cut that, but there's no way to go in and try to clear it up or work or transform that.
Buddha said, quote, enlightenment can happen in the blink of a gnat's eye. And he suggested that this is directly proportionate to how much energy you invest in the process of becoming enlightened. Now, enlightenment is not moksha. Enlightenment is not liberation and freedom. Enlightenment is simply full conscious awareness that you are the one individually who is aware.
And now you can begin to work.
Yes. Yes.
With the collective.
Yes, because enlightenment isn't an end, it's a beginning.
Because before you have it through self-understanding, understanding of yourself, you can't understand anyone else around you in the environment. So that's, for me, one definition of enlightenment. Self-knowledge, it makes you start to begin to work in the world.
I agree, Michael. That's my experience after all these years of seeking truth, whatever that may be, until, well, like Christ himself said, love thy neighbor as thyself, which obviously is saying that until I experience love within, for and with self, whatever that is, not ego. And self is not ego, folks. As Westerners, we're programmed to think they're one and the same. That self and ego are the same, but they're not. In the Oriental sense of self, we're referring to the spiritual soul, capital S, self, the spiritual soul within the human body that's available for all of us, because that's ultimately who we are. Like Teilhard de Chardin said, we're not human beings trying to have a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And when we experience this and realize this, then the whole universe transforms. So the process of transformation so far comes from within out, not from without end. You don't build a house from the top down, you build it from the bottom up. And a plant grows from a seed from the center outward.
That kind of means that the spirit itself has this curiosity of feeling a split, through this human experience. Otherwise, it would not be here.
And it wouldn't constantly be asking itself the question, who am I?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because in spirit it's more obvious that there's no division, I feel.
See, the soul, the higher self, every culture has its own concept and words for this. In English, there are words like higher self, oversoul, genius, guardian angel. And from the Hindu Sanskrit, Atma, the spark of God within every living being, particularly human beings, because we are given God consciousness, the capacity, the potential for experiencing God consciousness and becoming one with God in that process, meaning the creative spirit, through our breath as our primary medium and gift of co-creating life itself. So one of the important things that I've been working with just in this last few days and for the last 40 years, but I've been concentrating it, is the concept and English word integrity. Michael, for you, not the definition, but the expression, when you experience being integrated, or when you experience the integration process more accurately, because it really is a process, it's not a static state. It's a process. All principles. Let me do an aside here. My experience is that all universal archetypal principles, even though they're principles, foundation, logo seeds, they're processes. They're dynamic because they're constantly transforming themselves into new states of being and new states of consciousness, individually and through this process, collectively. Our whole body works this way with our individualized cells. For some reason, the creative spirit needed to create a separate consciousness, a consciousness that was divided from itself. So through the archetypal principle of light, to use the Judeo-Christian archetype of our archangel of Lucifer, light and fire, Lux Ifer, to the principle of light and fire, God separated itself from itself. Not in a sense of rebellion separated, but to understand itself. To co-create with itself, out of itself, a new form, a new reflection of itself, which it could then have a relationship with. And in this process of having a relationship with this other self, a new being is created. So in this way, God recreates itself by working with itself through light and fire, through Lux Ifer. In this process, manifests a three-dimensional material universe with all of its unimaginable multiplicity of physical forms. So that in this mirror of matter, through the medium of light, God can see itself and understand itself more profoundly, more holistically, more completely. And for this, God creates a three-dimensional universe. It's a mirror, so it can reflect itself back to itself for a deeper understanding of itself. What it senses in itself in potential, it now realizes in itself in expression and creative manifestation. Until that process is complete with that particular universal moment, so that universe has completely learned all that is potentially available for it in that particular universe. And then very possibly God breathes back into itself, to use the Brahmatic way of looking at it, the Hindu way of looking at it. The Brahma lies down, goes to sleep, and breathes out the physical universe. And when that breath is complete and everything is done in that out-breath, Brahma breathes back into itself and breathes that universe completely back into itself. And then on the next out-breath, regenerates and creates a brand new universe with completely different laws, principles. But this is all theory. What's important is that we learn these universal principles and learn to practically apply them in our everyday lives in order to improve the quality of our lives, individually, collectively, in community, and through this example, having an influence on the region in which we live, the greater community, the eco-community, which is based upon the watershed area in which we live. In this case, it would be Lago Atitlan and all of its tributaries that feed it. Every living being, creature, and thing in that eco-community is a citizen of this particular green community that's primarily dependent on this particular watershed. So once we realize that this is our true community, then in order to be democratic, that means we have to give the weeds a vote. We have to give the trees a vote, the fish a vote, the ants a vote. Every living being, creature, and thing within this natural eco-community, in order to be democratic, must receive representation in any collective decision made by human beings. This is my position on reality and social order for the last 40 years. We must ask ourselves, well, if we want to co-create community together, what are the natural limitations of it? And right up front, I say to you that the first limitation, naturally and practically and really, is the watershed in which you live. Because every living being in that watershed is dependent on that watershed for its life. There's your community. So everything that's alive must be considered with every decision. So if you're going to blow up something, you better start thinking about the larger effect on the whole network of life that lives in that particular green community, that eco-community that's in the watershed area that you're sharing. Would you like for them to come and blow you up? Probably not. Harmony is a real experience. Harmony works. It's a universal archetypal principle that is here from the beginning and is never not here. Only the ego takes me in and out of the experience of it. When I realize this, I have a choice. I can choose harmony or continue feeding the monster that causes all the harm on the planet. The Aryan patriarchy at this point in history for the last 5,000 years. My choice is to be a harmony worker and co-create and generate harmony. In the process of choosing this, I learned that with harmony comes the universal archetypal principle of integrity, and with that comes liberation. It's a natural process. There are three unique individual principles that co-create the universe, actually, but certainly my reality. So when I open to receive the great harmony and become a harmony worker and a poet for peace, the universe changed for me. And I received the gift of integrity, liberation, and peace through renaissance, new birth. And I've been working with these universal principles since. These 4 principles are the foundation of my life's work for the last 40 years.
Which 4?
Holistic harmony, perpetual integrity, eternal liberation, and evergreen peace through ultraviolet, renaissance, rose amber. These 4 are universal archetypal principles. And the foundation of my whole reality and life and work for the last 40 years has been with these 4 archetypal principles, beginning with peace through renaissance at the very least, with every breath. That's where we begin this work. So I say poets for peace, because in the process of realizing peace in ourselves, the all-important inner peace that Peace Pilgrim constantly refers to, is the inner peace. We must begin with the inner peace if we're going to do any outer peace work. Because if we don't experience inner peace, how are we going to know what it is? How are we going to understand what peace is if we're trying to, quote, sell it to people? Well, when you experience it, you don't have to sell it to them. You are it. You've experienced it. You understand it. And you can invoke it at almost any time and share it with people if they want to just basically share it with you in that moment. So with every breath, if you choose to give peace through renaissance and receive peace through renaissance, and if people around you begin to share it, you create a field and a standing wave of peace through renaissance. It's an actual field of energy coming from both consciousness and breath. So when you use your breath co-creatively in this manner to create peace through renaissance, you begin to experience and manifest.
How do you visualize peace through renaissance if there will be no words?
Well, if there were no words, this is the way I've learned to do it, because I've been working with this particular pranayama or conscious breath exercise for 40 years, since 72. What I've learned with pranayama is that the first thing that is important is to use your out-breath, your expiration, to give something. Something that you would like to give the one and all, whatever God is for you, a gift that you would like to give to God, and in the process of giving it to the one, God, you give it to the all, everyone, everything, every being, creature, and thing. What is that one thing you would like to give to God and everyone else? Well, let's say, for example, I choose to give peace through renaissance with my expiration. So with my next out-breath, I consciously, through my creative imagination, breathe out of my mouth a concentrated, steady stream or channel. And I actually literally see evergreen peace through ultraviolet, renaissance rose amber flowing into that channel and going out into a spiraling, expanding mandala sphere, which goes out and encompasses and touches and moves everything within the space that it expands into. So that one breath is a logos seed that is planting peace through renaissance, meaning new birth. And when I see it in these color tones, which is I experience it to be, is evergreen peace through ultraviolet renaissance rose amber, it becomes a spiritual new birth experience. I begin to experience new life. At this moment, I fully realize that I'm co-creating life itself with every breath that I choose to breathe. What life? I'm creating my life.
You give new birth and you receive new birth.
Yes.
Because that's the movement of life. That's the new birth goes out from you as a co-creator, and new birth comes into you as a human being.
See, and this is happening, whether we are conscious of this or not, this is happening all the time with every breath. It's just through meditation several years ago, I learned that this was what was happening consciously. And so since that time, for 40 years, I've been giving or breathing out or expiring peace through renaissance. And then I choose to consciously receive evergreen peace through ultraviolet renaissance rose amber with my in-breath. So when I inspire or breathe in my in-breath, I consciously see it coming into me, the color tones. I feel it through my creative imagination until I experience this remarkable universal experience of evergreen peace through ultraviolet. Now, the ultraviolet is the color tone of the vacuum, the void, space, the plasma of space, the movements, the frequency and vibrations of the plasma of space, the structure of space, creates the vibrations and tones, and its color tone is ultraviolet. The eyes can't see this color. It's the color of space. And by the mystics, it's considered the transitional transformational zone.
The ultraviolet.
Ultraviolet. In other words, where we go after, quote, death. After the body ceases and all the material aspects of ourselves don't work anymore, that energy field that we truly are goes through the ultraviolet fire, flame, light, and is transformed.
That's kind of the astral.
Yes.
And imaginal. They are like kind of the
yes.
same.
Yes.
So
because
the bridge into that intermediate realm is ultraviolet color.
Yes, it's the bridge.
What's the feeling?
That one's hard to put into words.
Okay. Because I used to realize that imagination can be feelings too. Like if I can just sit here,
guaranteed,
and I can just imagine me drinking a cup of coffee and I can feel the taste. Or I can just sit here, I can imagine hearing the waves of the ocean. Or I can just close my eyes and I can visualize being in a paradise forest. That's
smell
pure
it.
Imagination, and I'm using my 5 senses.
That's expanding your 5 senses.
Yeah.
That's expanding consciousness. Once we expand consciousness, the perceptive apparatus expands. The 5 senses expand. So it's like the average folk seeing 7 colors of the rainbow. And the Rosicrucians doing these exercises and this breath work and all this other work, and them seeing 8 colors of the rainbow. Yeah. Because through the consciousness work, they expanded the perceptive work to see that there's this other dimension beyond what they were programmed to see before, through their 5 senses.
When we do this inner imaginal work or practice, we most likely will enhance the everyday normal experience with your physical eyes and all other senses. Through that inner practice, we enhance the very living itself, as we call living as now.
Yes, Michael, we learn to live the ordinary life in an extraordinary way.
You can see it more holographic, holistic.
The way it is.
Yeah.
The way it is. A far more holistic, non-dual, unpolarized viewpoint of reality.
Because the imaginal is the, let's say, the foundation of this outer reality. So it's like kind of returning in and see really the base construction of the physical reality.
Yes, because it's the causal dimension. It's where cause...
It's closer to the archetypal.
Well, in essence, it is the archetypal, because it's the first image.
Yeah.
So it's the first movement of manifestation out of whatever God is, that nothing, out of the center of nothing. That movement, that logo seed, is the imaginal. It carries with it the image, the spiritual image, an impulse of what it is eventually going to manifest out here in matter, or in a 3-dimensional universe, or whatever kind of universe. But the point is, it's all to manifest something out of itself in order to reflect back to itself what it is, so it'll see itself in a more holistic way, for a far deeper understanding of itself, so it'll be wiser the next time it creates another universe.
I wonder what the next realm would be after the 3D.
The fourth dimension?
But it's physical to experience itself in another dimension.
The fourth dimension. That's the next dimension. Theoretically, when the wind...
I mean one dimension more away from the source. Like this world will experience itself as the physical gross matter, if that can experience itself in another kind of sense.
I'm certain that it can, in the way that we can experience a higher aspect of ourselves, as, for example, the genius, the oversoul, the higher self. Certainly, that's the theory behind animals living with humans and being domesticated, that by living with us, for example, the dog becomes far more intelligent, so to speak, or to take on more human traits, more human qualities, more human intelligence. In fact, there was just this wonderful thing on Facebook that Rishi sent out. Showed the subway in Moscow. I think it was Moscow. From the suburbs going into Moscow, and this big German Shepherd was laying on one of the seats sound asleep, and there were a few people in the car, and they were all looking at him adoringly and beautifully. And there was a story underneath, and I come to find out that this is a common event in this area. Dogs have learned, who live in the suburbs, have learned to go into the city by getting onto the subways at certain times. They know exactly to wait until the door is open. And right before the doors close is when they go in. They almost get their tails caught. Mm. They go to the back to the cars that they're less human usually in. Mm. Sometimes one dog will wake another dog up if they know it's a stop that it usually gets off. Mm. Somehow they know what stops it is that they're supposed to get off. I mean, and this is a common thing. It's been going on for years as they've adapted to living in the suburbs, but where more food is and more treats, like panhandlers, panhandle and change, going into the areas where there's the most food concentrated. So yes, by living around humans, consciousness is adapted more toward human consciousness if human consciousness is the dominating force field within that particular space-time region.
Yeah. But I'm more into I'm talking about something that I don't know exists. The closest I can come is to how a crystal, a rose quartz, has been going through its gross material life, not ending up, but right now being in a crystal. So I would say that the next dimension from the third dimension could be a crystal dimension, where this dimension can look in the crystal back at itself, as the soul now is looking at this world back in itself. So this material world becomes the soul of the crystal world. That's what, and if that can goes on, in that way.
If the unified field theory is correct, if the oneness expression of the mystics is correct, then that is what's happening, Michael. And now that these two schools or ways of seeing things, the scientific and the mystical, have stretched their imaginations in their particular areas to the point they've reached almost the max. When they express this experience, the language that they express it in is almost poetry, and it's the same language expressing the same experience primarily. So there is truth. Part of that truth is the consciousness that there is truth. We human beings are given that gift or curse of some of that consciousness, that there is a greater truth. And we're either cursed with it, or we're given the gift of it, and that means the responsibility of using it wisely. So I recognize it as a gift, the opportunity as a human being to have a spiritual experience, or as a spiritual being to have a human experience. Yeah. And that in that realization, I can be a co-creator of this whole, my share of this universe with every breath, that I give and receive. That at the very least I'm creating my life and having a direct influence on the co-creation of my whole life and all that that means to this particular individual spiritual soul body in whatever conscious capacity I have to understand it, to experience and understand itself, and then try my best to clumsily share that through some form of direct, clear communication out here to someone else who either wants that experience or has also had it and wants to share stories about it, so to speak. It doesn't matter. It's just I've had this experience. I know other human beings are having this experience and have had it. I'll call it Buddha Christ consciousness. It's not anything that can be labeled really. It's just an understanding that you're alive, you're conscious that you're alive, and you're conscious you have a relationship with a universe that's maybe beyond the ability to understand or to even experience for an individual human being. It's a gift. This human life is a gift beyond our ability to even be thankful for it. I mean, we can never give enough thanks for the gift of life, of human life, with our spiritual capacity and our capacity of conscious co-creation. And the responsibility, the total responsibility that comes with that choice and that gift.
I want to ask you about the 9 spheres. I never asked you about that.
Yeah.
Because that may go also into the imaginal realm, no? I don't know really what it is.
Well, then now the obvious question is what you imagine that it is. And the word imagine by its very essence is image. I-mage, I-magician.
Because you said you were breathing out into this mandala sphere.
No. The breath that goes out of me, the spirit that is in the breath that spirals out of me becomes a spiraling mandala sphere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that my whole life basically is a spiraling mandala sphere. My whole field, my whole unified field that makes me identified as an individual human being is a spiraling mandala sphere that goes out of me in about 33 different rays or spirals and comes into me in about 22 different rays or spirals. There's 55 altogether coming in and out of me in this spiraling mandala sphere, not just 4.
Yeah.
Because when I go to the 8th chakra and stay there and live there for a while, I've learned that the 55 vibration is, well, it's hard to even, I'm not going to go any further than this. My experience with the 55 vibration in all of its forms and variations and scales, but the integrity 55 is probably the foundation frequency that is the generating frequency of this universe. 55 zillion cycles per second or nanosecond or whatever it is. That 55 frequency is somehow in there. Intuitively, this is what I was informed about.
Yeah.
I should say it was revealed to me. I discovered this from within. So I've been working with, and so you often see this 2 5-pointed stars. Like I'll do Earth Heart Juice Farms, and I'll put 2 5-pointed stars, 55 of them. Or I'll put 1 5-pointed star here at the beginning of Earth Heart Juice Farms and 1 at the end. 55 Earth Heart Juice Farms. Because eventually that's what the vision said is supposed to be completed because of 55. And no more than 55 integrated adults in every juice farm. No less than 6, no more than 55. That's it. So there's a natural limitation to every juice farm as far as the people involved.
Yeah. So what's that 9 sphere about? From the textbooks, I mean.
Depends on how you approach it. Metaphysically, if you go platonically with frequencies, 9 is the frequency of completion. Okay. So it's some form, it's the sphere of the completion of some larger cycle. Okay. It's a frequency of that that takes all other frequencies and tends to bring them to closure.
In a binary system.
Yeah, beginning with 0.
So I just read like 9 spheres. I don't know nothing about it, but it's something that belongs to this universe. Then could it be 9 archetypes, fields, or something? Like that?
Well, they are. It is. Well, they're actually 10, 0 through 9.
Yeah.
If someone, they know, I've been studying archetypes. All right, different systems. What is the primary, number one example of an archetypal system? 0 through 9. In fact, it's all the other systems boil down to it, because they're all vibrating.
Yeah.
Those systems are all expressions of vibrations and frequencies.
Even 55. Yeah.
So, oh, by the way, the English word integrity, numerologically, is a 55. It's the ultimate wholeness. It's the ultimate experience. It's the ultimate unified field. Abundance. It generates abundance. It generates the ultimate abundance, yes.
It's the ultimate dance of the universe.
It's the rhythm. It's the beat. It's the heart. The generating center of the dance. Yes. The manifestation is the dance. The expression into the outer form is the dance. The birth. That's the dance.
Mm-hmm.
Before the dance, there must be an archetypal image. There must be some picture. There's got to be a psychic blueprint. Something that we're dancing with and toward.
Cause and effect.
For purpose and meaningful work, creative play, which is the dance. So that as human beings, in order to liberate ourselves, we must transform ourselves. In the process, we transform everyone and everything around us in the process of choosing to transform ourselves, because there's that natural movement into higher states of energy, which transformation is, unless there's resistance. But as long as everyone's open to the experience, then...
Yes, everybody is. Yeah, it's funny, because the world doesn't look like that. They go in the other way, away from it, from fear of it.
Fear.
As far as they can.
Fear is resistance.
We can.
Fear is resistance. That's what fear is. I mean, resistance is the product, the effect of fear. Because fear basically is the ultimate no.
That's contraction, closure.
Absolute.
To life, instead
Absolute.
of open receptivity to life.
Yes.
We do we contract instead of expand.
Yes. It's a reaction to impulse and stimuli rather than a response. And as human beings, we have conscious choice in every moment which to do, regardless of the external stimulus. It could be threatening, it could be horrible, it could be shocking. We still have choice about how we either react to it or respond to it. That's why Christ said, love your enemies. Do good to those who harm you. Pray for those who mistreat you and persecute you for the name of freedom. In the name of freedom.
So as long as Brahman is bringing out this one out breath, and here we are humans, and we also, in our big long out breath, or contraction, and until we choose to breathe in, there will be no feedback returning to the original out breath of creation.
We expire. We die.
Yeah.
See? We cease.
So all we need to do is to breathe, to inspire, to receive
and give.
Yeah.
They're halves of the same process, of the same whole.
Yeah.
One is equal to the other, codependent on the other.
Yes.
If I don't know how to receive, I don't know how to give.
Yeah, exactly. I'm talking in a big macro, microcosmos talk here in a breath talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, but of course, yeah.
Well, it's the same. If I don't know how to breathe in deeply and receive all the way down into my bones and into every cell of my body with my breath, then I'm not breathing correctly. Because the living spirit is in the breath. So if I really want to experience the living spirit and become one with it, and it comes into me immediately and primarily through my inspiration, then I want to inspire it into all 100 trillion cells of my whole body.
And all that we'll be breathing out, we can now reflect in our society.
Yes.
Yes.
We can transform it in...
So when we see that we can see how really... Then we can see the emptiness that we can use for receiving abundantly in the in-breath. When we see what we actually have been breathing out already. And not attach to what, and not identify to what we're breathing out. You're seeing it, understanding it, okay, this is what we've done so far.
And be fully conscious that you're giving it as a gift to the one and all. And in the process of giving it as a gift, you're transforming.
So even war, we can say that war is a gift. You can't exclude anything.
War is a gift because so far it's part of the truth.
Yeah.
It's part of the reality, and we can't ignore and deny it. And it is a gift because it gives us the opportunity to learn to co-create real peace, as the children call it. The children around the world call peace real peace because they know that the peace of adults is a lie. So whenever the children refer to peace, they refer it often to real peace. They're a little tired of this mendacity, this adult lying about peace and constantly making war in the name of peace.
There will be something with when we get the camera, the head camera, to go and ask children about peace and see the answers.
And if they were going to create heaven on earth, or we put it in words,
How do you choose to do that?
how would they do it individually? Yeah. And would they like to draw it, or sing a song about it, or write a poem about it, or create a dance about it, or a little sketch, or a little story?
We'd be amazed what comes out from these little beings.
Yes, Michael.